important that we remember that the genesis of the G20 was with the central bank governors and the ministers of finance.
At the latest G20 summit, leaders quietly confirmed what many in the crypto space have been whispering for years. A new global financial system is being built, and it's not running on Bitcoin or Ethereum. It's being architected on networks that can move money instantly across borders with near zero cost. And two names keep coming up in every serious conversation: XRP and Stellar XLM. Now, this isn't hype. This is about infrastructure. You see, when the G20, a group representing the world's largest economies, starts openly discussing interoperable digital payment systems and cross-border financial integration, they're not talking about speculative coins. They're talking about technology that can connect banks, governments, and businesses worldwide. And that's exactly what Ripple and Stellar have been building for over a decade. Let's break this down. At this year's G20 meeting, the finance ministers and central bank governors released a document outlining the roadmap for improving global cross-border payments by 2027. This wasn't just political talk, it was a strategic blueprint. They outlined goals like reducing international transfer costs from an average of 6% to under 1%, improving settlement speed from 2 to 3 days to under 10 seconds, creating interoperability between national digital currencies, CBDCs, building a transparent system that supports both retail and institutional cross-border transactions. Now ask yourself, what existing technologies already do all of that? Not Bitcoin, not Ethereum. It's Ripple's XRP Ledger, XRPL, and Stellar's XLM network that have been built for exactly this purpose. Ripple has been working with central banks and financial institutions through its CBDC platform, enabling countries to issue and manage digital currencies securely. Stellar, on the other hand, has been heavily involved in humanitarian and cross-border use cases, especially through partnerships like MoneyGram, Circle, USDC, and even Ukraine's Ministry of Digital Transformation. Both are ISO 20022 compliant, the new international standard for financial messaging that's being rolled out by SWIFT and the entire G20 banking network. That's not a coincidence. That's alignment. Here's what makes this moment different. For years, talk of a global financial reset has been treated like a theory, something that might happen someday. But now it's written into official documents. The G20, IMF, and Financial Stability Board, FSB, have all confirmed that the transition to digital, interoperable systems is already underway, with 2025 to 2027 set as the full implementation window. This means we're not speculating anymore. We're witnessing the shift in real time. When they talk about interoperability, they're describing a bridge between systems, one that allows a digital yuan to connect to a digital euro or a US CBDC instantly. And when you think about bridges and liquidity, XRP and XLM are built for that exact role. Ripple's on-demand liquidity, ODL, uses XRP to move value across borders without pre-funded accounts. Stellar's Anchor network connects local fiat systems worldwide to enable the same seamless experience for retail users. The G20's roadmap isn't just compatible with Ripple and Stellar. It requires technology like theirs to function properly. You might be wondering, why now? Why is the G20 suddenly accelerating this conversation about digital payments? Because the traditional system is breaking down. Cross-border payments are slow, expensive, and prone to friction. The global remittance market, which moves over $600 billion annually, still relies on systems created in the 1970s. SWIFT is outdated, and even their modernization attempts depend on integrating ISO 20022, a protocol that both Ripple and Stellar already use natively. So when policymakers talk about future-proofing finance, they're not creating something new from scratch. They're upgrading to networks that already exist and are tested. Ripple has run pilot programs with dozens of central banks. Stellar has helped facilitate real-time cross-border transactions with regulated partners. And both have built ecosystems that align with what the G20 wants most: transparency, interoperability, and instant liquidity. In short, this isn't a coincidence. It's a convergence. Let's zoom out. The world's biggest economies, representing more than 85% of global GDP, are all in agreement. They need a unified digital payment framework. They're adopting ISO 20022. They're testing cross-border CBDC interoperability. And in the background, two assets, XRP and XLM, have been silently integrated into the conversation through partnerships, pilot programs, and infrastructure alignment. This is why seasoned investors and analysts keep saying, watch the institutional layer. That's where the real movement happens. The retail crowd looks at price charts. Institutions look at utility. And if utility is the future, XRP and XLM are not speculative bets anymore. They're the plumbing of the next generation global financial system. If the G20 stays on course, and most signs suggest they will, then the next 2 years will mark the biggest infrastructure transition in modern finance. Banks, governments, and payment providers will be onboarding to digital rails faster than ever before. And when that happens, demand for the tokens that power those networks, XRP and XLM, could skyrocket. Because remember, the G20 doesn't pick coins. They pick infrastructure. And Ripple and Stellar have quietly built the most efficient, compliant, and globally scalable infrastructure available today. When the G20 talks, the world listens. But here's the thing, they rarely speak plainly. Their announcements are wrapped in technical language, policy jargon, and strategic phrasing that only insiders truly decode. Yet, for those who know where to look, the G20's most recent communications are crystal clear. The framework for the digital financial reset is being built, and it aligns almost perfectly with what Ripple, XRP, and Stellar XLM have been preparing for years. Let's break this down layer by layer. In September, the G20, working through the Financial Stability Board, FSB, and International Monetary Fund, IMF, released a follow-up progress report on the G20 roadmap for enhancing cross-border payments. On the surface, it sounds like a simple policy update, but hidden in plain sight is a timeline that changes everything. By 2027, the G20 expects to enable instant settlement across borders, meaning transactions clear in seconds, not days. Ensure interoperability between CBDCs, allowing one country's digital currency to directly communicate and settle with another's. Standardize data flows using ISO 20022, the exact protocol Ripple and Stellar already use natively. Expand access to regulated payment providers and fintechs within this network, precisely where RippleNet and Stellar's anchor network operate. That's not just theory, that's an execution plan. And what's striking is that many of the technologies and principles listed in this roadmap already exist inside the XRPL and the Stellar network. Most people think Ripple and Stellar are competitors, but in reality, they're twin systems with complementary goals. Ripple focuses on institutional-grade payments, helping banks, governments, and large enterprises move value efficiently across borders. Stellar, on the other hand, focuses on financial inclusion, connecting people, small businesses, and underbanked regions to global payment rails. Both rely on the same foundational principle: real-time settlement through distributed ledger technology that removes friction, cost, and intermediaries. So when the G20 announces that it wants to reduce average cross-border transaction costs to under 1%, or enable instant retail and wholesale payment interoperability, it's effectively describing the core architecture of Ripple and Stellar. Ripple's on-demand liquidity, ODL, system already enables instant cross-border transfers without pre-funded accounts. Stellar's anchor model allows users to convert local fiat currencies into digital assets, like USDC, and send them globally within seconds. That's not a theory, that's live infrastructure already used in over 70 countries. Now, let's talk about timing. This isn't just some distant plan. The G20's roadmap gives us specific deadlines, and if you've been watching Ripple and Stellar's movements, those timelines line up perfectly with their expansion cycles. Ripple recently announced its CBDC platform, actively engaging with multiple central banks. Stellar has been deepening partnerships with MoneyGram, Circle, and even UN agencies for real-world cross-border operations. Both have joined ISO 20022 governance and interoperability testing initiatives, meaning they're shaping the standards, not just following them. So when the G20 says by 2027 we will achieve faster, cheaper, more transparent cross-border payments, it's not talking about an idea that's yet to be invented. It's referring to a migration that's already underway. Think of it like the early 2000s internet shift. In 1998, the world was talking about e-commerce frameworks. By 2005, we had Amazon, PayPal, and online banking running at scale. We're standing in that exact same 1998 moment right now, but for digital frameworks. And XRP and XLM are the rails being tested to carry the next global wave. Here's where it gets even more interesting. The G20's push for digital integration heavily depends on ISO 20022, the messaging standard designed to replace SWIFT's outdated MT system. And while many people see ISO 20022 as just a data format, in reality, it's the key that allows banks, CBDCs, and digital assets to speak the same language. Ripple and Stellar are two of the very few blockchain networks that are natively compliant with ISO 20022. That means their ledgers are already capable of formatting transaction data to fit directly into global banking systems. Think about that for a second. Before the global rollout even began, these two projects had already aligned with the technical foundation of the future financial system. This is why when you hear about the SWIFT ISO migration or the G20 payment reforms, it's not just about old systems catching up. It's about preparing for networks like XRPL and Stellar to seamlessly plug into the new infrastructure. That's the hidden connection that most retail investors miss. Let's get real. We all know price is what people watch, but utility is what drives the next wave of adoption. And when you see global policymakers aligning around the exact language Ripple and Stellar have been using for years, interoperability, transparency, instant settlement, ISO 20022, that's not random. That's validation. It means the pieces are falling into place for both networks to serve as the back-end plumbing of international finance. If you think that's far-fetched, remember this. Ripple's technology has already been used in government pilot programs. Stellar's network is used for humanitarian aid distribution and cross-border USDC transfers. Both are fully auditable, energy efficient, and regulatory compliant, things the G20 specifically emphasizes. The future that's being built isn't about speculation. It's about integration. And when integration happens at a global scale, value naturally follows utility. The G20's latest roadmap isn't some futuristic white paper. It's a signal. It's confirmation that the world's largest economies are done talking about the future of payments. They're building it. And the infrastructure that fits perfectly within that blueprint, Ripple's XRP and Stellar's XLM, is already live, tested, and expanding. So while retail traders debate short-term price action, institutions are laying the tracks for a global system where these two assets will become fundamental to how value moves across borders.